up that way.
Yeah, it was the other end, but it was this side.
Yeah.
So guys, we start heading south now. First we're gonna drive through the neighborhood of San Telmo, and then we'll go to the neighborhood of La Boca, where we'll do our next stop to visit essentially Caminito Street, which is this colorful part of town where we will be able to see all these buildings made in corrugated metal sheets, wood, and painted in several colors that are so typical of the postcards and the pictures of Buenos Aires. But first comes first, right? And this neighborhood where we are now is the neighborhood of San Telmo. This is the oldest neighborhood that we have in Buenos Aires and was in its origin an aristocratic neighborhood. Thing is that at the end of the 19th century, the years 1871, 1872, there was a strong yellow fever and cholera epidemics that affected especially the south part of the city. So when this happened, these families that lived over here decided to move to the north, where today we have the neighborhoods of Retiro, Palermo, and Recoleta that we will see later during our tour. And the houses that they left behind here, instead of being abandoned, were rented to the large amount of immigrants that at that time were arriving to Argentina in general and Buenos Aires in particular. So at the end of the 19th century, this neighborhood of San Telmo passed from being an aristocratic neighborhood to be one of the areas in Buenos Aires that hosted a large amount of immigrants that were coming to our city. These houses rented to the immigrants were pretty big, and of course instead of renting a house per family of immigrants, it was rented a room per family. So in these houses, guys, ended up living on average 60-70 people. But they could even make it to 100. Imagine the conditions in which these people lived that did nothing but helping spread the diseases that we already had over here. But in the area was then produced a very interesting cultural mixture. Because as you can imagine, guys, these immigrants not only came with their luggage, but brought with them their traditions, their ways of cooking, speaking, their rhythms and their dances. And from the cultural mixture produced in the area, a completely new rhythm and dance was born, which is what we know as tango. That's it. The tango was born here, guys, out of the cultural mixture produced in the area. However, if you ever go to Montevideo in Uruguay, I'll try to convince you that the tango was born over there. If that happens, you disregard whatever they tell you. I have no idea whatsoever what they're talking about. Stick to this idea that the tango was born here at the end of the 19th century. You've been seeing little sculptures down the street to the left and the right. If you haven't, then if you pay attention to the right in the corner, you will see one of them, which are different characters of comic strips that we have or had at some point here in Buenos Aires. We have them all over the neighborhood. Take a look, for example, there to the right.
The guy with the balloon.
Now, being this the place where the tango was born, we will find several places related to this dance. Here in San Telmo, for example, we will be able to see in just a moment the oldest Tangueria in town. A Tangueria, guys, is a place where we can go and see a tango show. Not a place where we go to dance, right? If we know how to dance, instead of going to a Tangueria, we go to a milonga. That would be like a disco, but for tango. But a Tangueria is a place where we go see the show. And the first Tangueria in Buenos Aires, the oldest Tangueria in our city, is this one that we have to the right now. This one over here. The building itself, it's pretty old, dates back to the 1750s approximately. Throughout the years has been used for several things, until in the year 1940 started working there the first Tangueria of Buenos Aires. It's called El Viejo Almacén, or the Old Warehouse, because among the uses of this building, at some point it was a warehouse. Now, if you take a look to the left, you will find there a monument which is known as the Labor's Monument. It was done by an Argentinian sculptor called Rogelio Irurtia, who tried to represent over there the importance of the teamwork. That's why we see a group of people pulling a rock. Now, if we pay closer attention to the sculpture, we will notice that out of the whole group of people, the ones that are pulling the rock are three. The other ones are just pretending to. I mean, I don't know how that teamwork goes in your home countries, but that's exactly the way it goes right over here. I really don't think that it was Irurtia's idea to show it like that, but it fits perfectly fine. And behind the monument, we have a building with many columns, which is nowadays the engineering school that belongs to the University of Buenos Aires, but in its origin, it's right over there where used to be the Eva Perón Foundation. You know, Eva Perón, or also known as Evita, was the first lady of Argentina between 1946 and 1952. And she became famous because of all the help that she gave to those who needed the most, right? Part of this assistance was given through a foundation that she had, that was the Eva Perón Foundation, that worked in that building. After the military coup that deposed the Peronista party in the year 1955, well, that's when the Eva Perón Foundation stopped working, and the building was used to have the University of Buenos Aires, the engineering school of this university. Also to the left, but on the next block now, you will find two buildings that look alike. We call those twin buildings, and it's there where we have the offices of the Ministry of Agriculture, Cattle Raising and Fishing, being agriculture and cattle raising the two most important economical activities that we have in Argentina. Fishing is not so relevant in economical terms, but well, the three activities are together in the same ministry. Right over here, guys, for a few blocks you will feel the cobblestone streets, right? These were kept to preserve the old historical aspect of this neighborhood, and many of these cobblestones were brought from Europe as a ballast on the ships. When we exported this large amount of grain and cattle, the ships came empty from Europe, but they still needed a ballast in order to cross the ocean. They left the stones on the port, they took the grain, the cattle, whatever. It came a moment that we had so many stones in the port, we had no idea what to do with them, and this is what we use them for. Now this neighborhood of San Telmo, guys, it's also known as the Antiques District. We have quite a large amount of antique shops in this neighborhood, most of which are located alongside Defensa Street, which is the one that we will be crossing in just a moment. So Defensa Street is the one that we are going to cross in the corner. That is the main street that we have in the neighborhood of San Telmo. And take a look at the contrast right over here. We have a Starbucks to the left in the corner and a very old traditional cafe to the right. And what we have to the right now is the Rego Square. This is the main square in this neighborhood of San Telmo. So let's see, guys, a moment ago I was mentioning that here to this neighborhood arrived, especially at the end of the 19th century, quite a large amount of immigrants, right? For you to have an idea about the importance of the immigrational process in our country, let me tell you that between the years 1860 and 1930, we had coming to Argentina approximately 6 million immigrants. In a moment in which the local population didn't even make it to 2 million inhabitants, guys. So imagine the influence that this immigration had in our culture. Those who came the most did it from Spain and Italy. About 80% of our immigrants were either Italians or Spaniards. So that's where most of us look for our roots. That is the biggest cultural influence that we have, etc. But we have people coming from all over Europe. We have people coming from Russia, Poland, Ukraine, Armenia, Scandinavia in general, Ireland, England, a little bit of French, Germans, Wales. I mean, from different parts of Europe, although essentially they were coming from Spain and Italy. In this next block to the right, you will find this brick building that used to be an old cigarette factory. When the factory stopped working, the building remained abandoned. And years ago it was bought by the government of Buenos Aires City, renovated it completely, and since then we have there a museum. Nowadays it's the Modern Art Museum of Buenos Aires.